I come from Roskilde University. It's a small university up in the far north. I'm actually heading a research group there on innovation in services and experiences. And over the years, I have taken some interest in tourism research. I have some very good colleagues at my university who are excellent in tourism research. So we have managed to do some publications in that area. And it's mostly qualitative research. It's a little bit action-oriented, where we have been doing some interventions, especially my colleague Jon Sundbo, that you may know, and myself. Jon has also been Valais member for many years. So I'm going to talk about some of this tourism research that we have been doing. And we have been mostly focusing on areas, you could call it areas under pressure. And I think this is it's very illustrative also of service research. Obviously, tourism is about providing innovative solutions all the time. There's a lot of innovation going on in the tourism sector. It's also something, especially in these areas under pressure, something that engages many actors, so that tourism innovation solutions, they are provided by sort of many actors, and they have different interests, different backgrounds. So they often battle a lot about the role of innovation. And they try sometimes to develop shared business models, shared ideas, shared visions for how they can develop tourism and tourism innovations. And I'm going to give you, see if we can make it within, because it's supposed to be a short keynote, because you're tired, all of you. So I'll try to give you 3 examples of this that we have been looking into over the years. So areas under pressure, it's areas often remote or rural areas. Even in Denmark we have, which is a very small country, we have these rural and remote areas where there's a decline of employment, for example. There's lack of investment, problems of transportation. They're very difficult to get at. And there's also, in respect to tourism, there's a lack of any attraction sometimes. So why should you go there? And these areas, they are very interesting in a way to study in terms of tourism, because they take up tourism as a driver of socioeconomic development. They try to create some ideas for how to engage each other in development of tourism practices that can attract some tourists. So I want to say just a little bit about innovation, because innovation is my core area. So innovation, it's not just about having nice and good ideas. It's mostly about realizing these ideas into practice. I guess you know this, all of you. But then I have another point, which is that innovation is not necessarily an improvement. It's not necessarily creating something that people appreciate or that we like. It can very well produce something that we do not like, or that some people do not like. It might be an improvement to some, but create unemployment for others. So therefore, innovation is always something which is it's contested and involves many conflicted actors in a way. And this is definitely also true in tourism. Perhaps some of you know the acclaimed father of innovation theory, Joseph Schumpeter. He defined innovation as new, what did he say? New combinations of society's productive means. It's actually kind of valuing the resources, as we heard this morning, in a new way, combining resources in a new way. This is what creates innovation. And the example that I have just listed here, it's a remote area in Denmark where they used to have a lot of fishing going on. And then due to the quota system that were introduced many years ago, actually, fishing declined, and we had something in Denmark, we call them the quota kings, centralizing everything about fishing in some major cities. So, but in Torup Strand here, which is this remote old fishing town, they succeeded in revitalizing fishing. They have fishing, it's the clinker-built boats that they pull up on the beach, and they use a winch for that, or a tractor or something like that. But they didn't have any quotes for fishing. What do you call that in English? Quotes or quota? Quotes, something like that. Yeah, quota. They didn't have any, so they were able to, on a cooperative basis. It was actually a researcher coming up there, and he organized the remaining fishermen there on a cooperative basis. They bought back some of the quotas that had been sold to the quota kings. And so they, in a way, they have succeeded now to revitalize fishing. But it's not just fishing, it's an innovation because it recombines resources in a new way. It's both about fishing, so it's a productive business, you could say. It's also a residential area where people want to live. And it's also a recreational area that attracts tourists because they have a very nice restaurant and a very nice shop where you can buy fish. And it attracts a lot of tourists. So there are a lot of people there on the parking place every time you come there, even if it's a remote area. Many of this is something that comes out of the research on public value creation. It's a guy called John Bennington, and he has been working on public value and public value creation, which I think is something which can be transferred also to tourism. In a way, in these remote areas where you create socioeconomic development, tourism becomes a way to create public value or community value or something like that. Bennington, he has a very interesting definition of public value as a trade-off between what the public value or what the tourists value and what adds value to the public sphere. So it's two different things, that something that we really want, but also we have to consider what adds value to the public sphere. We had this interesting talk this morning about the commons, the sort of the public value, which is for everybody in a way. So this is sometimes a trade-off that can cause a lot of conflict, because you have something that we really want to have, but then we want to have, maybe we want to have a lot of tourists in this area, but does it really add value to the public sphere? That's another discussion in a way. Okay. In these areas, you could say that tourism, they deal with complex challenges. That's a concept from the literature. That these are challenges that has no root cause in a way, and you can't really solve them very easily, at least. And in tourism, you have many of these extremely complex challenges. For example, how can we create more accommodation possibilities for tourists? this is really a complex challenge because people, they tend to disagree a lot about these things. Or transportation. How can we have last mile transport to a tourist destination? Also a complex challenge which is sometimes extremely difficult to solve. And then of course we have all the things that goes on in tourism now about sustainable tourism. How can we create sustainable what does it mean for the one thing, and how can we then create tourism that we feel is something which is sustainable, something that adds something to the public sphere in a way. Really a complicated problem, also because people, it's well known from the literature on these areas that people, they share spaces, but they use them for different purposes. Sometimes tourism development, it's left to single entrepreneurs, people who have very good ideas and they have a very strong willpower to pull them through. But when they are dominating in a tourism area, then it is likely to create a lot of conflict with the local population and so on. So yeah, we see this all over, these conflicts between people about tourism, and how then to put people together. So in tourism research, there's a lot of reflection on that, recognizing that we have these extremely difficult problems, and we need therefore to create collaboration in order to solve, more collaboration in order to solve these problems. I think that there are two traditions in the tourism literature. There's one tradition about collaboration about innovation, collaborative innovation, how to create sort of kind of an industrial district of tourism businesses, how they can collaborate between each other and co-create new tourism innovations. The other one is the value co-creation literature, which has been applied a lot over the past years in tourism research. It's about how tourists create value from resources, from natural resources, from culture and so on, and how we can offer something for tourists that they can use and that they can value. It's also about valuing innovation activities in a way. So we have these two traditions that both of them, they underline the need for collaboration. But I think that there's a lack of literature that focuses sort of more on the community aspect of development. There was a review of the literature conducted some years ago showing that most of the literature that we find, it's business-oriented. It looks at the businesses, the single entrepreneurs, the industrial collaboration between two businesses and so on, and there's very little how the community is engaged in developing value for the community in a way, and not business value. Although I did hear some interesting presentations here that show that there is actually a lot of research going on in this direction right now. So more research is needed on this collective context, and especially also on the generative mechanism. What is it that generates collaboration? What are the different platforms that people can collaborate about? What kind of entrepreneurial activity is needed, which is more collaborative, more oriented towards community development? So I have three cases here, as I mentioned. One is it's a place called Lillestrand. It was a case that I did together with two colleagues. One of them were Jon Sundbo, and the other one was Jørgen Ole Berenholt, and we have published an article in Journal of Rural Studies about that case. The other one is about a small town called Hundested, north of Copenhagen. And the third one is a town called Odsherred. And we have been doing longitudinal studies since maybe 2016 on all three of these cases. We are still following them, and we try to publish now something on Hundested and Odsherred. So this is Denmark. It's a very small country up in the north. Due to some bad strategic decisions in the 19th century, we were much bigger before that. Now we are a small country, and you can see here the cases, Lille Strand, it's up there. It's really a remote area. It's very difficult to get there. You have to use a car. There are some few buses going there. And there's no school in this town. They have to go to another place. And they have they did fishing for many years, and so they have had to sort of reinvent themselves to remain an area where people want to live. And the other ones are here, Odsherred and Hundested, up north of Copenhagen. So Lille Strand, we were three professors going to Lille Strand some years ago. It was my colleague Jon Sundbo. He knew someone up there in Lille Strand, and they were really trying to transform themselves, because they were also a fishing city. They had these clinker-built boats that they pulled up on the beach, and they didn't have it anymore because they had sold away everything. They do have one small boat there still, but they needed to change things. So they called upon us from Roskilde University, three professors to Lille Strand. The next article they wrote about it was 3 professors on deep water. Not sure what that meant, but anyway, we went there, and so we didn't do much. We just facilitated some seminars together with them to help them create a space for development. As I mentioned, this is really a very small place. But it's a very nice place. Nature is really great there. So they do have some kind of attraction there, because they have the only cliff in Denmark except for Bornholm. The stone cliff, Bulbjerg, it's called Bulbjerg. But they have this decline due to fishing. Then they had some second home owners trying to put up some second homes or summer cottages. Compared to, for example, Torp Strand that I showed before, they have really had difficulties in developing anything at all there. And furthermore, they were not included in the national park of Thy. Which had a lot of investment from it was in the local area, and they had a budget from the Danish Parliament, and they were not included into this. So we went there. There was an organization there called Havboerne, which was association of the local residents. They had a very nice meeting, Danish meeting house, assembly house, where they held meetings. Then there were the second home owners. They were very active. They came from Copenhagen and from Aalborg and so on. So they were really active people, and they were employed in consultancy companies, so they knew how to organize many different things. And they also had events at the beach where they were playing music and inviting also the residents there. So they had kind of created some kind of collaborative atmosphere there when we arrived. And there were a lot of people in this assembly house when we came there. And we started to organize some ideas together with them. We divided them into some groups, and there was discussion going on. We ended up with 3 development groups that were focusing on different things, ending up in them creating a lot of different tourism innovations, like orienteering, hiking routes, a yearly fishing festival, a creativity house. They created a small museum. They published a book about the city, and they had funding from different sources to repair the winch that they had for the boat, and also to create coastal protection there that could also be used as very nice seats at the beach. They also engaged eventually, which I thought was very interesting, in kind of political action, because they wanted to be member of this Thy National Nature Park. So you can see how we had many meetings with them over the years. And I think it was a very, very successful case of how people can come together and they can define some kind of shared vision. What they said was that it was something about small tourism. They didn't want to have full-scale tourism, but they had this vision of small tourism. They wanted people to visit them now and then, and they set up some locations where people could sit. They made a homepage so it's easy to find them and all that. So they were really good at developing this place together around kind of a shared vision of small tourism. Thereby, they have created a much more lively and interesting place, starting also to sell fish and so on for people coming there. So I think this was very interesting. Then there's another one, Hundested Harbor up in the north of Copenhagen. They have sorry about that. Everything disappeared. They have a very nice harbor, but it was an industrial harbor. So they had a very, very active person who was the harbor manager. He was elected as harbor manager just before we came there, and he was very affiliated. He was he had good relations to the fishermen there, which turned out to be decisive. The old families that had a lot of power in Hundested. So he was able to get support for changing the whole harbor area into something different, where they had restaurants, they had small shops, they had a brewery set up, they had, even they were able to attract a big cruise ship, which was not a big success because they couldn't take all these guests in there, but they had a cruise ship there, putting the whole city on the other end, all the tops, so a lot of things were happening there, and they created kind of a narrative together. It was called rough and authentic. So they had this common label, also kind of a shared vision or shared business model amongst all these local people that were there. There was also a sand sculpture festival and a lot of things going on there. They pulled it all together in this common vision and worked on it together. Problem was that there were also, of course, locals that opposed these ideas, didn't want to have the tourist, didn't want to have the cruising ship, didn't want to have them build anything on the harbor, because it blocked their view over their nice view over the sea and so on. So locals, they started to oppose the project. They complained to the municipality and so on and so forth. So they had, nevertheless, a big fund coming in there, supporting this narrative of rough and authentic, and allocating some funding to it. So it's just another example here of people coming together, creating a common narrative, which is very productive in relation to generating new tourism innovations. that are, of course, contested by the local population. And here's my final example from Odsherred. This is a summer house area in Denmark, but it's one of the poorest areas in terms of gross national product per citizen, and they have very badly educated and so on, but they have a lot of summer houses there, summer cottages, or second home. They have 25,000, which means that the population, it grows with 135,000 people during the summer, which is almost doubled up. So these summer house, summer cottage guests play a very strong role for the community. And they have a very strong opinion about the place. They, through word of mouth and through interaction with friends that come there, they are very good at promoting the place, telling people about how nice it is and all that. And these summer house people, they also are taking innovative initiatives quite often. I have here's an example of an old auction hall in Odsherred where they used to sell fish. But this is also a place where fishing is not playing such a big role anymore. And then it was restored. There was put some money into it by Realdania, a Danish foundation. And then it was completely empty. No one wanted to. But then there were some summer houses that set up a very nice bar there, kind of a pop-up bar that comes there every summer, where they invite musicians well known in Denmark and create sort of a very nice environment there. So here we have sort of the summer house guest as someone who helped to promote the area and help to co-create some service innovations. So what we are working on now is try to figure out what does all this does it tell us in a way. It shows something about how these tourism initiatives, they can grow sometimes from the bottom in a way. That some kind of collaborative space is sometimes created where people who really value the place, they start to develop it. They start to value sort of also the co-creation itself, because they get a lot of friends and contacts. They also value the place, the resources. They tell about it to friends and family, and people start to come there. And I think it's important that they use these generative framework. It's not just about collaboration, it's also about generating it through creating some kind of label or common vision that can be translated into many different initiatives. They don't have to agree completely about it. There's some kind of flexibility built into this overall vision. Like, for example, in Lillestrand, they had small tourism. In Hundested, they have this rough and authentic that they built on. Also, they are, I think you can say that they are heterogeneous, because just a very interesting session before about renovation in the Valais here, about how alignment was very important for that project. But in this case, it's not so much about alignment, it's really heterogeneous in a way. Because, I mean, everybody are different in a way, and they have different interests. So there's a lot of battle going on, and a lot of experimentation with the local resources. A lot of contested public value creation where people, they disagree and think that this is not good and this is better and so on. So we have these heterogeneous actors, and we have, in a way, there's a lack of consensus, which is quite interesting in a way. to observe in all these cases that there's no complete consensus of what is it that we want. It reminds me of the other presentation I just made about the public library. They have the same problem. So they are heterogeneous, and there are many trade-offs between what people they want to do and what creates what they think creates value to the community. Because on the one hand, people want to have more tourists, and then they start to do a lot of things to attract tourists. Then all of a sudden they have a cruise ship, and so they reconsider and figure out that they have to adjust, change the framework because it didn't add value to the public sphere as they see it. But nevertheless, they succeed in engaging people in this purposeful action, reflexive and purposeful action. So my conclusion here is there's a need for some kind of conceptual development to sort of grasp what goes on in these areas, to sort of theorize how they create this emerging sustainable tourism development. We don't capture it really yet. We have the commons, but it's not. It's more heterogeneous. It's a contested practice in a way. We need to capture the rich interests that people are investing in these areas. Like, for example, second home owners, they invest a lot of interest and a lot of work in these areas for free. And then you have the local residents, maybe they want something else. So what are the rich interests that are there, and how can they sort of go together? We have to focus more on these shared, sustainable business models. How can they share something, common business model, and how are they developed? And also, I think it's important also to see it in a wider context, because many of these things, they happen in a regional context. But there's a lack of understanding, I think, about how the local initiatives, how they connect with the wider regional and institutional context of these initiatives, and sort of how they can help each other, how the local Lillstrand can help Thy, and how Thy can help Lillstrand. What are the interactions there which can be important for development of tourism in these areas under pressure? So that was my little speech here.